So I've been working in mobile health for over a decade now, and from time to time I would work with healthcare professionals and learn a tactic or two and apply that into my own health, right? So did you know that by just raising your hand, it's actually good for your mental health, but it's also for your physical health? All right, so let's play a micro game. All right, very simple game to activate your body and your mind. And first of all, to kick this off, right? So everyone, we're gonna stay seated, okay? So you will raise your hand as if you're trying to reach the ceiling as high as possible and follow my instructions, all right? So, ready? All right, right hand as high as possible, and then left hand. Right hand, left hand. Try to reach higher. Once more, right hand. All right, left hand. Do you feel at all better? Okay, let's do it once more. But turn it around, okay? Left to right. Left hand, higher, higher. All right, right hand. Left hand, right hand. Once more, left hand, right hand. All right, fantastic. Thank you. So now, during all the talks in the conference today and the next few days, if you do so to ask questions, to answer questions, then not only that you would feel good, not only that it would be good for your health, but you also make this MobiSys to be the most interactive conference ever. All right? So let's dive in. So raise your hand if you have at least thought about this one. Hey, I had that idea before. When you saw a startup raise tens of millions of dollars. Yes, that's what I expected. Right, so now, raise your hand if you had an idea that you thought that it can change life, but you've never taken a leap to start a company, to push it through for one reason or another. I definitely did that, thank you. I definitely did that multiple times. All right, but 7 years ago, I took a leap because I was convinced that we had something, we had an idea that worth pursuing. So we thought that we were ready. And we spent 5 years R&D for our very first project on a wearable device that tracked sleep as accurate as that in the hospital from inside the ear. We received awards. So first awards was from Census, the best paper, and then Mobicom, and then Google Award, and then Sloan Award, and then NSF, and then Couriers. And we thought that we were on fire. We thought that we have something massive. But what come up after that, you would not believe it. So I start pitching to 70 VC and expecting at least one would say yes. But the result, none was interested. Okay, none was interested. And I thought, what's wrong? But it turned out that they didn't care at all about our technology. Nobody cared about the technology. And we asked why. And 7 years later, here we are. FRENZ Brainband, the device that born from that idea, is now serving over 10,000 users across 37 different countries. And we've raised tens of millions of dollars from companies like Samsung Ventures and the legendary Peter Thiel's Founders Fund. But I'm here today not to share the feel-good story. Absolutely not. Okay? Because we're still learning. Still a long way to go. And we are far from done. We're far from a successful company. Thanks, Alan, for such a kind introduction, right? But I'm here to share the hard truth, the life experience, something that I wish somebody had told me before I start the companies, right? And I'm here to share the failure, all the pivots and the painful leadership tests that we had to go through over the last 7 years. So now let's go back in time. Back in 2013, I was laying in bed and insomnia hit me hard. This is when I first graduated and then started my career as assistant professor, right? I have a hard time going to sleep because when I go to sleep, I think my mind start racing. And when I fall asleep, then I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and can't fall back to sleep. So, of course, my student didn't know about that because the day after I have to be ready and working with them, right? But if I go out of bed and try to get to work, I feel really groggy, I can't be productive. So I thought, there must be something better than taking a pill, right? So I start looking for more smarter solution. And that was a spark that I start working on sleep, working on understanding what is sleep, and then track sleep and try to improve it, and that become my obsession. As a researcher, I try to ask the question, what's wrong about me? Right? What's wrong about my sleep? And my colleague, Anne Howard, she was the director of sleep lab in Johns Hopkins and just moved to Colorado. She invited me to her sleep lab. And what she showed me was a polysomnography. And this was a picture that I took 12 years ago, right? I walked in. There was a kid. She may be 10. She was wrapped around by all the sensors, wire on her scalp, and then she was asked to sleep normally. Now, it's so normal that we know about this, but 12 years ago, there was a big surprise to me. That, no way I'm going to do that. So I bailed the test. But that really haunted me. So then Anne explained to me that, hey, doctors normally need these signals, the brain signal, eye signal, and muscle signal, to map sleep stages. But back then, if you remember, Fitbit was only can track your step. There was no Apple Watch, no Aura rings, right? So those would not existed. So I haunted by the question of, can we track this? And can we remove those wild jungles, but still can track sleep very accurately? So we came up with an idea. What if we try to track this from inside the ear? Nobody have tried that. It might be crazy, but why not? We just try it. Right? So we first built a proof of concept, Anne, my student here, together with Anne Habauer, and we start building the prototype out of University of Colorado in Denver. We hacked it together using some open BCI board to develop it, and after multiple trials, it actually worked. We can show that we can capture brain signal, EEG, eye signal, EOG, and muscle signal from inside the ear. Nobody have done that before, and we were so happy. And it was very, very accurate. So we published a paper in Census back in 2016 and got the best paper award on that. And 2 years later, we got a Google award on the same topic. So I was on fire. I thought, this probably can be massive, right? So in 2018, I founded Earable, the company that licensed the technology out of the University of Colorado. But I jumped headfirst into what we thought most important, which is funding, right? So I jumped headfirst in, and it's very naively, I thought that, I envisioned that we can and will build a consumer product, in-ear product, that would track sleep and outperform anything else on the market. Of course, naive, very naively, looking back. But after many pitches, from Silicon Valley to LA to Boulder, we always get rejection, right? I brought the signal, I brought best paper award, and it keeps saying, hey, hospital grade sleep tracking, super comfortable from inside the ear. But there is one, and you should be watch out for this when you try to fundraise, right? Wow, this is so cool, very cool. Keep us posted. And then silence. All right? And it kept going on, going over and over again. I was so confused. My team was confused. We thought that we were ready. We thought that we had something. Right? We just need some money to kick it off. But 10 months passed by. Okay? We only have 3 months left on our runway. So then I start thinking, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's our team. Right. So in 10 months passed by in 2019, on a trip to Boston to meet with a friend of mine who sold his company called Misfit, which is a wearable company, for $260 million. And he turned into a VC who was so kind to meet with me, and during the lunch to meet with me, and I shared with him the gradual self-doubt that I had. What's going on? I must be wrong, right? And he said, he leaned in, right? He looked me in the eyes, and he said, and I can never forget, Tam, you don't have a product. You don't even have a product idea. Nobody will buy your technology. VC won't give money for your technology. They only buy a product that solve a solution, that solve a pain that people willing to pay for if you're trying to target consumer market. That's like a cold wave that hit my face, right? It's sharp. It's undeniable. I had that feeling before that, but I was trying to push it down. I was convinced that, oh yeah, technology was cool, but I can't dodge it anymore. He was right. We did not pack our technology into a product that people can understand, right? And the consumers really do not care about hospital-grade accuracy of sleep tracking. What they care, it turned out, is they want to sleep well. That's all. They want to sleep better, right? So my first lesson there was, don't sell your awesome tech. Sell the product that solves a problem that people will pay for, right? So we pivoted. There's no more tracking device. And just a month after that, with one trip to Silicon Valley, we raised the first round of funding from a very well-known VC in Silicon Valley and off the race. Now the company is alive. So with the seed fund in the bank, I thought the climb was over. Just like when we work hard, submit the paper, and then get accepted, right? Or the grant get awarded. We just ride away, but it's not. So it turned out that I'm actually heading for a roller coaster that I did not didn't think of, right? So at the beginning of the year, we got around 1.7 million in terms of our funding to build the very first product. But the check was just the start. So we start having people in the company. I hired very, very good people. We start burning cash, and with a lot of deadline for the next round. So when we benchmark, later we look back, when we benchmark a hardware wearable company, that if we want to build a product and launch into the market, it normally costs about $15 to $30 million. That's normal benchmark, right? We didn't know it at the beginning. So I quickly realized that winning the pitch is just opening the door. If you want and to stay in the game, but if you want to open more doors and continue to stay in the game, you need to hit the milestone. You need to prepare for the milestone. Prepare you mentally, financially, physically for the next milestone. So the second lesson is when you pitch for your funding, that is just the start. You must deliver those promises at each milestone, and then you should stay in the game. Think about it as a marathon. This is not going to be a sprint. So the very next milestone that we have to hit, just like any other startup that raised the first round of funding, I turned my basement into the office. This is my very, very first employee who's working on both engineers and the business development, right? So we have to build the MVP, or what called the minimum viable product. But what I did not realize was that there was a fundamental difference between the prototype that we built in the lab and the actual real product out there. And it starts from the people who would be using it. Now, in the lab, we actually pay people for them to use our solution, right? In the reality, people actually pay us to use our solution. Now, our solution can work for data collection and publication in the lab. But in the real world, if it fails once, they will return it, right? And comfort is not so critical because users often in the lab, they should use it and then go home, right? And they read the instruction very, very carefully. But in the real world, comfort is a key, and they normally don't read the instructions. So we start building the product, right? Our first prototype in the lab was a scientific success, right? We were able to show that it's possible, and we thought there were just maybe a few more steps from here to take us to the market. Multiple iteration is actually waiting for us in the front, right? And what we found was that this is only work with a small number of people. And of course, with that form factor, it can't go to market. So we went on and second iteration. Now with these second iterations, it actually worked much better, much reliable compared to before, and it actually looks better. But the new issue is surfacing, which is, it turned out that different people's ear are vastly different. Different ear canal, different orientation, the amount of hair, the amount of wax inside the ear, that it's not possible for making this solution not possible. So we decided that we probably have to find a solution, and time is going against us. And by now, the team is start getting bigger and bigger, right? We hired some top researchers from CU, and we now start working day and night with just noodles and pizza. Hopefully that we can solve the problem, and that arrived at the third iteration. We went from making the inside the ear to now change the form factor to behind the ear, because we now try to avoid the inside ear form factor. The good thing, we solved that problem because we no longer use inside the ear, and you start seeing that we start pivoting from where we started, right? But the problem is that it does not stay behind the ear all the time, especially when the person is falling asleep. So we had to come up with a new design, and we introduced a new technique there. It's called FRENZ touch, that it actually can elastic move in and out to help to make better contact behind the ear. It works really well. But the problem now, the signal now is really good, but the problem is it keeps falling off while the person is sleeping. Now we have to move on to the fifth iteration, where we thought, okay, the principle now works really well. But what doesn't work is that it will, when they sleep, we have to make sure that it stays on there. So the new mask was designed, but this turned out that it's an overkill, too heavy, too hot, and people don't want to use it when we start testing. So we move on to another version, sixth version, hopefully, and this time we start hiring very professional industrial designer to come in and help us with designing, drawing. But the problem is that the heat issue is still there, and many people actually do not sleep with AC on. Or in many countries that we are targeting also, this would not be the case. So great functional, but not so good form factor. We finally, in early 2022, we landed on a functional band that looked like this. It worked really well with the bone conduction speakers on the forehead, and it tracks signals very well, that it actually can help people to sleep faster. So this was the seventh iteration. After 3 years, whole years of engineering and re-engineering, and so that it will be ready for the prime time. But it's not so fast. That's right. So the lesson here is, when you raise funding, when you build your team, you should be prepared to go through multiple iterations to build a functional product. Now, after getting those positive internal feedback, we start roll out to 200 prepaid customers. And also, we did a very extensive study on 377 people to prove and to confirm that our system actually work and help people with sleep. So the result was great. We helped insomnia people to cut down their sleep onset anywhere from 40 to 70%. We helped them to extend their deep sleep anywhere from 8 to 12%. And our sleep tracking accuracy is as accurate as that of the device in the hospital, the polysomnography. We thought that was it. We thought the iteration for the product was done. But we start hearing back from our customer, the pre-order people. And the feedback was, it works, but it's so ugly that my partner laughed when I wear it. Now, we thought that, who care about the appearance when they go sleeping? But we was wrong completely, right? So, and what we see was, people start dropping. They start using it less and less frequent. And remember, these was 500 pre-ordered people they was very desperate about sleep. They pre-ordered, and they have been waiting for a long time. But once they start using it, they realize that, wow, the appearance actually matter. And my perspective now open up again after that 7 iteration. So when people paying for the money, they're actually buying the product that not just functioning, but must be the product that make them feel good, right? So I decided that we have to focus on building consumer-centric product. We need to pay attention to consumer-centric elements that we did not know on how to do that. So I start pushing the team to find global expert on this. So we commissioned the former designer of Hermes. So Hermes and Louis Vuitton was a top fashion design in the world. So we commissioned this for the Hermes designer to improve FRENZ style, fashion, with the goal of making it desirable. And that changed the product. Together, we reimagine the entire product, not just the hardware. It is the complete brand identity. So we rename the product, we redesign the logo, we select the completely new color palette, and we redo the whole UI, UX of the software experience. And we even change the box that evoke the emotion from user at glance, right? So, well, as a researcher, I often stuck with naming things. We enjoy naming things and enjoy naming the systems that we came up with. So the name Earable stuck for a long time. But after talking to the Hermes designer, we came up with a completely different name that it took me a long time to start observing that, to absorb that, adopting that, because we start out with something that we thought it is traditional, but we need to have the name that resonate with users. So we arrived at FRENZ. FRENZ, actually a Greek word for where thought was coming from. It was an ancient Greek word. So we decided to use FRENZ as a name, and we rebrand the company completely. From the packaging to and you can see the before and after to tell the difference. And I'll play a very quick 30-second video here. And even the
FRENZ
content,
is the first
the
brain band
language.
in the world that can track and stimulate your brain activity in real time. With audio contents via bone conduction speakers, FRENZ is the smart AI-powered EEG wearable that knows your brain state, knows what to talk to you, when to talk to you, and when not to talk to you. FRENZ precisely tracks your brain signals, eye movements, facial micro-muscle movements, and other biofeedback. Then selects clinically proven audio content to match your brain state, helping you fall asleep faster, stimulating deeper sleep, and waking you up at your preferred time frame at the most optimal time during your sleep cycle. FRENZ, the way to your mind space.
So the fourth lesson here is when you build a company, when you build a product, do not just deliver the function. You have to think about the product experience. So this final version is what we had today. We have went on and won Red Dot and Muse Design Award together with CES Innovation Award for the last 3 years. But by now we have the design, and it was 3 years in the grind. And we just closed our 3rd round of funding at that time from the legendary Peter Thiel's Founders Fund for roughly 6.6 million. But the new capital was not a reason for us to celebrate, because that mark done. And we have to work on making sure that we can deliver the product, because we already delayed the shipment time 3 times. And the reason was we had to reiterate our design. But one thing that I was able to deliver to our board, to our investor, was that we promised that we would stay lean and move fast, because the company who built this kind of product have spent about $30 million, $15 to $30 million. But by this time, we're still staying very, very lean, and we keep moving very fast. But the problem was I was living a double life. By daytime, I spent 40 hours per week as an associate professor at Oxford, working with multiple projects, have great, brilliant students, many interesting projects. But by nighttime, and during weekend, during non-working hour, I have to work with the US team to make sure that we can deliver. And this is not sustainable. It was not sustainable at the time. So when the third round came, I knew exactly what had to happen. Mass production was not an option for us anymore. We had to deliver, right? And I was going to be, this is going to be a make or break milestone for us. Because if we don't pass this, we can't raise the next round. We won't survive. And all the effort that we had put in will come to waste. So at the same time, I realized that I could not build a new category of wearable purely over Zoom. Because what we found, what we've learned is that manufacturing is brutal. And decision when you build manufacturing capabilities, you have to make that every day, daily, on the ground. So I decided to relocate and to go all in with the team. But resigning will also mean that I will lose all the momentum that I had been building for that last 10 years to bet it all on the next chapter of my career. So with the technical preparation that we had over the year, I burned the ship. I decided that it is time for me to resign. So I submit the resignation letter and moved back to Vietnam. So after Oxford, relocated to Vietnam and thinking 6 months max, I will solve this manufacturing problem so that I can go back to academic where I enjoy my job the most. But it took me more than 2 years. And it broke all expectations that I had at the time that I made that decision. And I quickly learned that manufacturing is not an extension of R&D. Manufacturing is actually a completely different world that you can start seeing by looking at this graph. It actually, what we had, the lab prototype was something that I was so proud of, but it's only at the beginning of the curve here. It just considered a proof of concept in this manufacturing world. I kept my hope high that I will be able to find a manufacturer, okay? Because they should be able to help us to take from this phase to the mass production phase. So I start talking to people, to companies, to large manufacturers who has been working for LG, for Samsung, for Intel in Vietnam, because that's what we're pretty good at, manufacturing. But getting a yes from them turned out that it's even harder than getting the VC to say yes to your first check. The problem was that when we go into those meetings, normally it's 20 people, from GM to line manager to QA manager, and sometimes VP will sit in those meetings. And I have to introduce the technologies and then explain to them what we're trying to do. The answer every time was no. Okay? Their feedback was, they was very inspired by the technology, but FRENZ was too new for them and too complex for them to manufacture. So we were not a smart, hard good. An example of that would be a smart TV, smart watch, smart ring. But we are inventing a whole new category here. We're inventing a smart, soft good for health that need additional tooling, that need additional processes, need different quality assurance mechanism. So no traditional manufacturer wanted to take the risk. So I flew out of Vietnam. I flew to Japan, Korea, and finally Taiwan. And then I come back because these people are actually, when you go out, they are actually more receptive to the new and novel technologies. And finally, with the help from our investor, I was able to get Foxconn, the world's largest consumer electronic manufacturer that has been manufacturing for iPhone for so many years, agreed to work with us with a lot of conditions. And the condition is we have to design our own processes. We have to come up with our own SOP, or standard operations procedures. We have to come up with our own standard and monitor those quality assurance and quality control mechanisms. I still say yes. I don't have choice, right? So it turned out that those manufacturers more like renting us their manufacturing capability, meaning factory. And they are renting and helping us to manage workers. They actually can help us from end to end. But I have no time to whine. I just jump in. So I work with our mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, manufacturing engineer to develop our own tooling and develop our own processes. And what the result of that was this process. And it turned out that, so we have to manage from warehouse to incoming quality control, go all the way to testing our own speakers, and then the list go on until it can get into a device. It was eye-opening while crying. So now, how do you make a device normally that takes us about 30 days project when we take 30 days to make one of them, and turn that into being able to make thousands of them within the same time frame? We have to come in and design our own machineries. An example of what you see on the left here is actually our team have to come in and design the robot's hand and program them to make sure that it can seal, it can weld, and it can stick those front and the back together at the speed that we wanted. These are the shape of the bands here. We have to design our own zigs for manufacturing, and then we develop our own zig. Those are devices like this, to make sure that we can assemble them and then we can test them. These are just some examples. But it costs a lot of money and time. So the largest mold that we have are about $65,000 a piece. The smaller mold would be anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000, and we have about 15 of them. Now, the worst part is that every time you make a modification on those molds, you have to pay $5,000 to $10,000, and you have to wait 2 weeks, and so-called lead time, because you need to get in line, you need to get approval, and all of that takes really long time. And we sourced 300 different custom components from 60 different global vendors. So that was a madness in terms of supply chains. So the lesson here is that we can't learn fast enough. There's so much outside of our domain expert. So we decided that we need an in-house expert. This is when we realized that really we need to add to our core team. So I began to start recruiting a new team member to lead this function. So we start all over in Vietnam and in China. Magic happened. So Alex came to rescue. He was a general manager in the largest factory of Samsung in Vietnam with a lot of experience, 30 years of manufacturing experience. And the best part is he was so motivated to tackle interesting and technically challenging problem. Once it got back into the normal manufacturing line already, he would not be interested. So that was such a great addition to our team. So now with Alex joining, things are moving at a lightning speed. He knows exactly which vendor to call. He has a good Rolodex that he can just pick up. He can decide what should be done in-house, or what should be outsourced. He designed the processes for us by looking at those different components and looking at our products. So then we go down to the factory floor, start building the whole line, and he led the team to build those equipment to test the band. So within 3 months, our manufacturing team we add another 45 people into the team, from QA engineer, supply chain manager, line leader, and lead the team to implement all of those processes and negotiate with those vendors to start getting moving. So 7 months later, we were able to mass produce. In total of 10 months, we're ready to ship thousands of products per month. And we've gone through, that's another roller coaster round. So we start shipping it out from Foxconn factory. There was just a small problem. Every time we sell one device, it costs us $194. You heard it right. Every time we sell something, we lost money. I can't believe it, right? We were so deep in manufacturing that we didn't pay attention to the economics of it. So the secret sauce of our product that make the device, make our product was so great is that the each of these electrodes, which these are the piece that make contact with the forehead, actually made of 6-micron pure gold plated on a flexible PCB, so that it's both very, very conductive and it does not get oxidated very quickly. And that's how it can last really long, and that's how we compete with among other secret sauce, right? But the cost for these to make is $25 a piece. But the problem is a new term, defect rate was 65%. It means that for every 3 pieces that we make, we have to throw away 2. Now, that's madness. Then I start talking to the vendor, and I asked, why is that the case? He was like, this is because they are the only vendor that accepted this order. And they said that this was so complex, and your requirement was so strict that we can't agree. And it was like, that's normal, that's pre-agree, and this was the kind of result that they would normally give back to us, right? So the vendor suggested a solution, and solution is compromise. Instead of using pure gold, why don't you use silver? Now, of course, if I was using silver, then why did I go to them in the first place, right? So we decided not to compromise, because if we move down to silver, that electrode get oxidated very quickly, and then the signal would become really, really bad. So what we did was that I decided to dive in and work with the team, work with the vendor. So every day, I would stay in the office, work with the software and machine learning team until lunchtime, and then I take the machine learning, the head of the machine learning, the head of mechanical engineer, the head of electrical engineer, and the head of manufacturing with me down to the vendors' factories. So it take about an hour to go down there, right? So we go down there, we try to fix the mode, we try to fix their machine, we try to vary the parameters from their machines. So we left no stone unturned, just day after day. And after we optimized the plating process, testing the various goal and temperature ratio, what turned out was the main reason for this was a compounding effect of 2 phenomena. One, we found that there was uneven gold-plated at the edge of those electrodes. But the more subtle thing is that it turned out that there was these gold need to be plated at the exact right temperature. Otherwise, the surface will become uneven. Who could have thought of that, right? So we work with the vendor to tweak those electrodes and remove the mold to create the round corner and making sure that the coating are uniform. And then we adjust the temperature by exactly 7.3 degrees C. And that we only can figure that out by multiple iteration. And of course, we try to optimize and try to do gradient descents. Hopefully, we can get to that point, right? So in the end, we brought the defect rate from 65% down to 1.4%. And at this point, we stop bleeding. We start making money on each device that we make. So the lesson here is, you can't lead from desk. You have to really dive in, get to the root, and then be self-reliant. Because leading from the front when there is hard problem is a key for the leader. And that is the life or death of the company when it comes to life. Late 2023 is when, that is the night right before our soft launch. We solved the problem, right? And this launch is very critical to us because we have to get it done in order to raise our next round, our 4th round. So I had not much sleep building up to that. I had not much exercise building up to that. And I was buried in bugs and debugging, and there was so much issue and answer phone call and solving problems around the clock. And at midnight, there was a sharp pain hit my chest, right? And I had to rush into the hospital with a mild heart attack. So when I was hooked to a monitor, there was only one thought that consumed me, right? I am out. And if I'm out, what about the launch tomorrow? Right? So that 110 team member counting on me. They are still working. They're preparing for the launch tomorrow. And what about the customers that we have been telling them that we will be shipping, and we have missed the delivery by 3 times? So while I was in the ER, my team was still preparing for that, and I could not stay down. So I decided to sneak out. So I sneak out of the hospital with all wire attached to myself, and just long enough for me to give the quick launch speech and open the champion to celebrate and launch our first batch. And then I crawl back to the hospital. We took many pictures during the launch, obviously, but our team liked to show this one the most in our company birthday celebrations because it always reflects Earable's culture. So my doctor, when I come back, he did not think so, right? He said, well, you're insane. With no sleep, with no exercise, this will happen again. And that hit me really hard. So I had built a product. I had built a team. And I had built a company. But I failed at one thing that mattered the most, which is sustaining myself, sustaining my health. And at this early stage, Earable can't run without its founder. So I thought greed would be enough. I thought it could outrun the stress, but I was wrong. Right? So the lesson here is make your health a primary strategy because crisis won't wait for your recovery. Okay? So now we have the product and we have mass manufacturing done very efficiently. And my job became very simple. So I thought, just to sell, right? Little that I know that I actually had saved the hard disk for last. So as a scientist, right, I always lean on data, and I thought to myself, well, we had the first AI wearable that can really cut sleep time down with all the data we published. We have a publication to back it up. We have awards here and there. And most importantly, we are backed by the top VC in the world, Founders Fund, right? Which is known for investing in, and they, most of the time they only invest in new category creator. You probably haven't heard of the fund, but they are the early investor in Facebook, in SpaceX, in Airbnb, in Spotify, among many others. So I thought, I was so confident, right? We almost do not have a competitor. And I thought the market would respond very positively with the evidence that we had. But during that time, I often meet with our main investors, Founders Fund. I often ask, right, what is your go-to-market plan? I never heard of that before. I just shrug it off. We're working on a product. And they keep asking, how would you warm up the market? How would you educate the market, right? And at the same time, about 12 months before our mass production, Kimi is our core team member who lead sales and marketing. And she keep pushing. We need to test the market now. We need to build early users community. We need to ship hundreds of products, at least 100 products out to the tech journalists who will be testing this and then writing about this so that people will hear about it. But to me, I keep saying, well, we have a data. We should focus. Why now? Why should we show an unfinished product now? Why should we waste $50,000 worth of product to send to journalists now? And we didn't test the market. I just thought, we don't need to do that. And time goes by really fast. So 9 months goes by, and 3 months left until we actually launch. We started to explore the go-to-market plan. Now, at this point, we start sourcing. We start drifting. We start going to agencies to ask for, give me go-to-market proposal from those consulting firms that normally it would take at least 3 months for them to bring back. But with our investors' introduction, it takes 2 months, right? Still very far. And in the end, we received 20 different strategies, roughly, from top firms who have helped big companies to sell millions of products. But all of them would always come back with two numbers that I didn't like. One, at least it would cost you 2 million, and at least it would take you at least 3 months to launch. That means that by that time, we already late. So, but the worst part is not that. I mean, yeah, we can probably try to raise a bridge around there. But the worst part is, they will take the money, they will not guarantee the sale. I can't believe it. They say, you can sell 1,000, or you can sell tens of thousands of products. We don't know. The market will respond, and rightly so. Because how can you tell how the market will respond if you've never seen that like that on the market? So it turned out that selling to consumer is actually much harder than I could imagine. And a good product is just the starting point, right? We have to spend money to identify and validate our target customer, and then spend those funding again for our advertisement to be seen by the right people at the right time. And then you must spend money again to create inspiring content to catch the attention, because the consumer attention now is only 3 seconds, right? And then you must spend money again and repeat your ads to target and engage the customer. For consumer product, it takes you 7 times, we call touch point, in order for them to make a decision of buying something. Think of yourself, right? When was the first time, or have you ever actually paid for a product that you have not seen that category ever, and never seen that brand before? No, right? You must see it multiple times, or it needs to be recommended by somebody that you trust. But that's not just it, right? It was also very eye-opening when I see those rates, the cost, the marketing charge for those campaigns. A user study, we think that in research it's costly. A user study of 20 people would cost anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000. A PR research for a PR firm, if you want to retain them, and they can guarantee a few articles, would cost you $20,000 a month. No guarantee, right? And in order to build a direct-to-consumer website, simple one, I mean, this is before ChatGPT, but in order to build a decent one, it costs you $30,000. And a photo shooting or commercial actually costs anywhere from $30,000 to $300,000. And Kimi and Alex was working in Samsung and VinFast before as a C-level there and a VP level there. So they actually shared with me that during the Samsung time, for every new commercial they make, it costs anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000. And it would cost them another $2 million to $3 million to distribute the content, because you don't just make the video and post in Samsung's website and people will come and see. You actually have to buy the advertisement time. You have to show it where potential customer visit. And that is staggering. And that was an oh shit moment for me, because we did not reserve that amount of cash. We have about 1.5 million cash in the bank. And that's only enough to pay for the payroll for the few months. And we have not set aside even 500,000 for the launch, let alone 2 million. So how could we cut this cost down, right? We had a small profit for the device, even though we now make positive, but that is actually still, we can only have about $50 for the margin. But I decided that we don't need to spend that money. And we learned from the previous lesson when we were trying to solve the manufacturing challenge that the founding team now need to jump in and to get hands-on. So we said no to those costly agencies and start brainstorming and trying different organic sale. And with just 200,000 over now 1 year instead of 3 months, we built a beautiful website, sold 2,000 products across 28 different countries, and land 400 articles from top-tier media, including BBC, Wall Street Journal, among many others. But we paid a big price. We were slowed down by 9 months, but at least we were surviving. And the key here is, what we found is that you can do it yourself. We users need to think about that early on. So my 9th lesson out of 10 here is that you should build your own go-to-market plan, and you should be familiar yourself with that GTM, because it will appear so often that you should use GTM as opposed to go-to-market plan, right? And the second is do not outsource these to your agencies, because at the beginning, nobody understands the customer, understand the product, understand your advantages and disadvantages than you and your core team. No agency can help you to sell the first set of products. And last, you should start early. You should iterate fast, right? So at that point, I thought that we finally in the clear, right? We had customers, we had product working, customers is coming, revenue is coming, but what hit me was not a relief. It was actually exhaustion. The grind does not stop when you start selling. It just becomes heavier and heavier and heavier, because expectation will be built up from there. It is not the major failure or the loss that wear you down, but the tiny drip of energy draining problem that will pile up, and those stress will become the shadow that you can't escape. Okay? The stress day in and day out will be very, very tiring. So when we were trying to solve the electrode issues, for example, I was restless. I was pumped with ideas and dopamine, because we found new things every time. And that's the nature of the scientists like ourselves, right? I was fueled by those urgency fix of fixing something critical, because when we do that, we see huge progress moving. But when we finally crack it down, there was a powerful rush of rewards, and I feel unstoppable. I was ready for the next big problem. But over time, it is not the big losses that actually wear you down, but the endless list of smaller thing and mundane thing, from admin stuff, day after day, to no weekend, and you handle the pile of nonsense, right? A broken supply chain that you have to solve immediately, or a little software glitch that if you don't jump in, it will keep appearing from time to time. So take 1 week in 2024 as an example, right? Monday afternoon, I was wrestling with the payroll glitch, because the bank would call me because the new accountant made a transfer that flagged some security issue for the company, and it required the legal representative to come in and answer the question, and I was have to stay on the phone for 3 hours. Now, because of that 3 hours staying on the phone, I missed 5 phone calls from a person in the vendor's factory, because I have to make a technical decision for them to keep moving and make the part. But by the time that I call back, it's already almost out of time, out of the normal office hours. So we need to pay for the high overcost so that we can get those parts in. And now come Tuesdays, right? Another supplier email us at the midnight and saying that now our part is being kept at custom. And now, if that happened, we will be delayed by 5 days. And if we were delayed by 5 days, we will have to pay $20,000 extra to Foxconn, because we already reserved the factories. So those kind of things just keep coming in, day out, every day, and it's really wears you down. And another source of stress is coming from financial stress, right? You always feel like you're bleeding. You're heading, as a CEO, as a founder, it's your baby. And it's bleeding because every week there will be hundreds of payment requests that come to your desk. A few thousand here and there would add up really quickly, right? A ticket, the flight ticket and a hotel, 7,000. If you rent a booth for exhibition, 10,000, right? Or the server upgrade, 6,000, and that recurring cost. And worst of all, if you did a wrong, if the person who just recently come in and quit the job in the first month, it would cost you at least 10,000 of unrecoverable costs, and those are really tiring, right? So that stress continues to build up from constant fear that you might let your team down. But after all this, if somebody asked me, and Adeline asked me yesterday, would I do it again? I definitely will, right? I have brought my brainchild to the world. It's not just into herself, but into people's life. And the best moment is when I see my mom proudly uses at 3 in the morning to put her back to sleep. Or seeing my kid using the device to help him to focus better during the day. And that make all of that effort worth it, right? And also sometimes I would get an email out of those crazy day, I would get an email from a stranger turned into a friend who overcame years of insomnia and for giving them a good night back, and they have it back to their normal life. And those are the moments that make all of that sacrifice worth it. So now, after walking this path, there will be just a few toolkits that I want you to add to your toolbox. Some books, some framework, that hopefully someday when you start your company, it might become handy. First, book. These are the few that I recommend to every founder before you take your first step. My most favorite one is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And The Lean Startup by Eric Rie. Build by Tony Fadell from Apple. And Measure What Matter from John Doerr, who's advisor of Google. Once you start and finish those early stage, these are the books that help you with your product launch. These are the books would help you to manage people better. And these are the books will help you for your operational skills development. My by far most favorite one, and I had to come back to that over and over again when I'm in the weed, is The Hard Thing About the Hard Thing by Ben Horowitz. You see yourself in there when you're in the weed. The second is Principle by Ray Dalio. He formed algorithms for life. He's a hedge fund manager, but he write it in a way that us, scientists, would understand that and appreciate very well. High Output Management by Andrew Wu and Crossing the Chasm by Geoffrey Moore. Now, by the end of this reading list, I highly recommend you to add your own mental health book into the list because you would need that to keep yourself sane. And if you don't do that, make sure that you adopt a cat that helped you to do so. Now coming to the funding path for your company. You definitely want to tie the funding to your product life cycle. Start with the core technology development. Now, if we are lucky that NSF is still around and iCore is still there, I would highly recommend everybody to apply for iCore if you want to find the customer segment for your technology. And then from that, you can form the product idea and the product concept. Once you get the product idea, you should join YC or Techstar, are two very, very good accelerator who can get you ready. Get ready for your pitch, ready for your idea, ready for your product. And if you need to build a prototype, seek out from CVC Innovation or corporate venture, which are most of the time they give out free money so that you can build prototype. And then you should consider applying SBIR multiple times, 1, 2, and there are actually 3 as well if you apply for like governments and different agencies there. Then you can fundraise for your pre-seed and the seed for your products and go on. There you have it. This is the end of my story. You have seen the last 7 years of my journey, the fail, the pivots, the breakthrough that shaped FRENZ, and those were distilled into a blueprint that I wish I was given before I start my journey. And back then, when I was buried in those chaos, in daily operations, the bigger picture was not as clear. And now, reflecting it back, I can see that all of that stumble that brought me closer to my dream, the dream of unlocking humans' potential for the billions. And today, that dream is taking a new shape. So back in 2024, I returned to academia, where I love the most, leading a new academic cluster on wearable AI for improving healthcare outcome at Dartmouth College. I am also launching a LifeX consortium, Longevity Innovation for Everyone, an alliance of researchers, startups, and pharmaceutical visionary to pioneer AI wearable that do not just track our life, but we try to extend it. Now, the spotlight is on you. You might have a lot of powerful idea. It might be still in your notebook, or it might be in the back of your mind, or maybe in your half-forgotten dream. The question is, will you take the leap to make one a reality? And my wish for you is, see beyond the horizon and unlock your true potential. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Sorry, I had to come here because I didn't have a microphone there, but we're running a little bit late, so maybe we take 10 minutes, at most 15 for questions, and then we move on to the first session because we don't have a break. Yeah.
Satya from Carnegie Mellon University. Tam, thank you very much for a great talk and congratulations on such an exciting journey.
Thank you, Satya.
Very inspiring. When I was listening to your talk, there was one phrase you never used, even though at first glance, one would think you would need FDA approval. So you managed to avoid it completely. If you had needed to get FDA approval, I'm sure it would have complicated your life enormously. So I'm just curious, how did you avoid it?
That is a great question. Thank you, Satya. There's a trade-off that we had to make between time to go to market versus market size. Now, if you get FDA approval, then you can get much larger market size and get paid by potentially hospital and insurance. The problem is that it would take you another 2 to 3 years to get FDA approval. We gone on the wellness path, where we sell this as a wellness device to start with. And that's how we can go into the mass market very, very quickly. Now, it doesn't exclude one from another. We're actually also applying for FDA approval. And our very first customer was a pharmaceutical company called Regeneron, and they would be the partner that would help us to go through FDA. So those are the strategy that we made very early on to make sure that we stay lean and we can move fast.
So you had to carefully target your claims to avoid.
Yes.
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 Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Professor. I'm Jing Li from Michigan State University. Thank you for connecting the dot backward. This is actually very inspiring for us who are still developing those prototypes in lab in a very quick and dirty fashion. So speaking of this, can you share some of your thoughts tracing back to your first prototype to the product you're launching right now? What are the compromising or non-compromising design that you had? Like something you stick through, like some design choice you stick through even to the final products despite those unforeseeable challenges you mentioned, and something that you maybe regret later to find it's hard to change at that stage.
That's a great question. So there are two aspects that we normally have to consider, and if I were to start again, I would put that very early on as a criteria for us to make a decision on what to do next. One is a customer's need, and two is a technical capability that we can build. At the time, we were more leaning toward the technical capability, and we went ahead to develop based on what we have, which is the in-ear technology. But it turned out that the core of our technology was capturing bioelectrical signal from the head. So I would say try to go from both directions. Get to identify the product and the customer need as fast as you can, and then from using that as a guiding principle to prioritize what feature you would be developing based on and using the technology that you have to fill in that gap. And the key here is make sure that you see that gap and verify that gap. And it's not something that you say for yourself, you say to yourself, or your team say to yourself that, hey, the customer needs this. It needs to come from customer. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
you so much for the inspiring keynote. I'm very curious from your MVP, which is version 1, to all the different versions, version 7, 8, 9. Did at any point it felt like you had to do pivot, hard pivot, to find product market fit? So essentially anything that's not an evolution, rather a revolution in some sense.
I would say in some sense, the change of form factor was an example of multiple pivots that we had done over the year. The in-ear form factor, for example, was something that we spent a lot of time on, and that's where we built our root from. But what we ended up was that headband. It has nothing to do with the ear. Even the only thing stay in the company with the ear was actually the name, Earable, right? So yeah, so there will be time where you have to make hard decision, and the ability to form your perspective, collect data, and prove it to yourself, and then just make the decision and go with it. I always tell my team that there is no best decision. You make a good decision, and then you make it the best decision. That's what we do.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Abi. I'm in the last year of my PhD at Columbia University. I'm hoping to submit a bunch of papers to SIG Mobile conferences. Based on your experience, what are some things you'd recommend students to include or approach in their papers, based on now your real-world experience?
Well, first of all, congratulations on your paper accepted to SIG Mobile.
No, I'm hoping it will be.
I think we have a fantastic community, technically and also humanely strong, right? So I wouldn't recommend anything differently from what we are doing, because I think that our PC have done a fantastic job, and the steering committee has been on the ground to make sure that the direction that we are going is reflecting the trend in the industry, and that propagate down to faculty and then propagating down to the students, right? So I wouldn't say, I would not recommend anything for the direction changes. I think one thing might help is, in addition to what we are doing, maybe trying to do and be closer to customers, the actual customer. And that would help us to shorten the gap from the technologies, from our imagination to technology to product need, which is then closer to the real world. Great question, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thanks for the talk. I'm Mehdi from UCI.
Hi.
So the question that I want to ask is, in one of the lessons you shared, you said that you cannot learn everything fast enough, and you need to hire experts and outsource many things. But in some other points you mentioned that you need to craft your own go-to-market strategy. So that seems a little bit contradictory to me, and the question that I have is, for example, to what extent we need to expand our horizon and learn different new skills? Is reading some management books enough, or we need to pursue some sort of MBA degree, given that we are technical people and we are not experts in these areas?
Okay, that's a great question, but I break them into two parts, MBA or not. But before that, we will talk about whether there's a contrary in what I was saying, which is, yeah, you need to build the team that have the capability of handling key segments in the company, starting from obviously technologies to operation to sales and marketing. And in our case, manufacturing was one of the very key components. So that need to be part of your core team, your core DNA of the company, because you can outsource that, right? Now, the lesson about we should not outsource the important piece to expensive agency. At that, early stage. Now the key is at that early stage, because once we already have a bridgehead market, we already have a way to go to market. We can use agencies to scale that up exponentially, right? So what I'm saying there is you need to have core competencies in the team, but then do not push those out into the market, into the hand of agency. Now, second question is a lot harder and interesting, which is, should we take an MBA to build a company? My answer is no. I thought about it over and over again, especially when during the hard time. Sometimes I thought, well, I did not know those financial terms. I did not know those accounting activity. How do I hire the right people? How do I make sure that they're doing right? But the key is you need to find the people who are expert in that, who want to and will be willing to work with you. But that condition, that qualifier is very important. How do you make sure that they are willing and want to work with you? So you need to bring value into that relationship, making sure that the relationship is two ways. It's not just you asking them for help, but it actually either you include them into the core team, or they include them as advisors or senior advisors into the team, and you help each other. So you have to bring value. But no MBA. Yeah,
Appreciate
my thought.
Okay, let's thank our keynote speaker again.
All right, thank you.
So we have our first session.